This is going. These men ran the world's most powerful drug cartel. Now they say they're just family men. We'll take a closer look. And we'll pay a visit to the top of the world, where the Inuit now have matters in their own hands.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We're going to begin this evening with a subject that sooner or later occurs to millions of people who use cell phones. Are they safe? Can you get cancer from a cell phone because it's so close to your head? Almost 400 million people in the world, 80 million people in the U.S. are using cell phones now. The cell phone industry has always said they're safe. But now, in an exclusive report compiled by ABC's Brian Ross, the man who was in charge of the industry research program says this is not necessarily so.
6 years after the cell phone industry gave him $25 million for scientific research it hoped would prove cell phones safe, Dr. George Carlo has come to this conclusion.
We've moved into an area where we now have some direct evidence of possible harm from cellular phones. I'm on this thing every day.
Breaking ranks with the industry and incurring criticism even from one of his own colleagues on the study, Dr. Carlo tells ABC News research he oversaw suggests two potential problems: genetic damage, which can be a precursor to cancer and other diseases, and, while he found no increase in cancer overall, an increased risk of a rare type of brain tumor.
The type of tumor that we identified is consistent with the idea that it could be affected by the radiation coming from the antenna.
Depending on how close the phone antenna is, as much as 60% of the microwave radiation signal from the phone is absorbed by and actually penetrates the area around the head. The industry maintains, even with the new studies it paid for, there is no cause for concern.
I think that there is a preponderance of evidence that there is not a linkage between the use of wireless phones and health effects.
The industry issued this statement, saying that the scientific consensus is that there is no evidence of risk.
That's wrong. It's actually quite shocking, knowing what has been conveyed to them.
When cell phones first came out, they were never tested for health effects because they were simply presumed to be safe. But now, a 2020 investigation has found that presumption is very much called into question by a number of scientists around the world directly involved in cell phone research, including perhaps the most respected scientist in the field, Dr. Ross Adey at the University of California, Riverside.
This is the first generation that has put relatively high-powered transmitters against the head, day after day after day.
The cell phone industry has repeatedly reassured cell phone users the phones are safe. But the Food and Drug Administration says there is simply not enough known now to say one way or the other. This week, the FDA, while saying there is no evidence of harm, for the first time called on manufacturers to design cell phones that minimize the amount of microwave radiation to which cell phone users are exposed. Peter?
Brian, I've just one more question. You've talked to a lot of scientists for this program tonight. How do they behave around cell phones?
They limit the time they're on the phone to less than 30 minutes a day, and many have bought earpiece devices which keep the actual phone transmitter away from the head and the body.
Many thanks. Brian Ross, investigation for 2020. Later this evening, there's a very intense debate about cell phones and safety, so later this evening, Brian has a good deal more. The Centers for Disease Control recommended today that all students on American college campuses, particularly freshmen, should be vaccinated against meningitis. There was another case reported today at Eastern Connecticut State University. Meningitis on campus has doubled in the last 10 years, and it can be dreadful. Here's ABC's Rebecca Chase.
Freshman Melanie Ben had just finished final exams when she thought she had the flu. It turned out to be meningitis, and Melanie was fighting for her life.
It was 2 weeks. They took my arms first, and then over the course of the next few weeks, they took my legs.
Meningitis is a devastating bacterial infection that can lead to loss of limbs, kidney failure, even death. And it is also highly contagious.
We've learned that living in a dormitory, particularly for freshmen, carries a 6 to 8-fold increased risk of coming down with the disease.
Studies also show that heavy drinking, exposure to cigarette smoke, and stress seem to play a role. About 125 college students a year come down with the disease. 5 to 15 die. A vaccine against meningitis is 90% effective and has been given to military recruits for 30 years with no serious side effects.
There's no downside, as far as I can see, to taking this vaccine. It really comes to a question of whether or not you're willing to pay $65 for the vaccine.
Melanie Benz says she wishes she had been given the choice.
The effects are so detrimental that just that little bit of knowing is so important.
Even with the CDC recommendation, vaccinating all college students against meningitis would be a massive undertaking. There are 14 million students nationwide. Rebecca Chase, ABC News, Atlanta.
Other news. In Florida today, an appeals court has ruled that in a class action suit against tobacco companies, a jury may award damages in one lump sum to cover all the plaintiffs rather than on an individual basis. The jury has already found the industry can be held liable for making a deadly product. Cigarette makers have argued that a lump sum settlement might even bankrupt them and thought they would fare better on a case-by-case basis. On the money tonight and having to do with health, the soybean may be about to get a lot more popular. The Food and Drug Administration is letting companies label soy products with a message that soy reduces the risk of heart disease. Power of a single company fell again on Wall Street today. Microsoft's surprisingly strong earnings boosted the stock market. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up more than 187 points to close at 10,392. On the NASDAQ, stocks were up almost 100 points. Now, just before we go on to the rest of the news 2, but an item about ABC. A federal appeals court has overturned almost all of a high-profile jury verdict against ABC News. The jury had found ABC News committed fraud and other offenses when our producers working undercover obtained jobs at Food Lion, the supermarket, and reported on food handling problems. Today, the appeals court said ABC did not commit fraud and threw out all but $2 of the jury's award, ruling that the public was not harmed. When we come back, Elizabeth Dole, running for president, cashes in. And there's a new leader in Indonesia, and it's a surprise. And a lot of people are very upset.
Shannon Sharp, please. Has always talking trash.
You're paying, baby!
He's always trying to get inside your head.
You don't know your elbows from your...
And sometimes, he can get downright nasty.
I bet you pay transaction fees on your mutual funds. Your mama pays full commission. You know how to calculate a P/E ratio?
When we created a smarter kind of investment firm,
How diversified is your portfolio?
we created a smarter kind of investor.
You can't even spell Dow Jones. Okay, guys, let's get this right. To calculate a P/E ratio, you divide the stock price.
To build the new LeSabre, we didn't just look to research numbers or test scores. We also took a good look at your family. Introducing the all-new 2000 LeSabre, re-engineered with more safety features than any other car in its class. The new 2000 LeSabre by Buick.
Have you tried these yet? Specialized blends from One A Day. Herbs, vitamins, and minerals for things like tension and energy. One A Day. You're just what you need to feel your best.
What do more vets feed their own pets? Hill's Science Diet. With real meat as the #1 ingredient, Savory Recipes provides the highest quality protein. Superior nutrition for the life of your pet. Science Diet. What vets feed their pets.
Right now at LensCrafters, you can get a complete pair of great-looking glasses for only $99 in your choice of hundreds of the latest styles.
The LensCrafters $99 complete pair sale.
Only $99. You can't afford to miss an offer like this.
Hurry, offer ends soon.
If you wear dentures, imagine how nervous teaching teenagers could make you feel. What if your dentures slipped? But thanks to the all-day hold of Super Polygrip, those days are over. I think that says a lot about the power of Polygrip.
The only woman running for president dropped out of the race today. Elizabeth Dole said a lack of money was her biggest problem. Other people say that while she worked in government for years and on her husband's presidential campaign, she was not an effective candidate herself. We'll talk to ABC's Cokie Roberts about this in a moment. First, ABC's John Cochran.
With her husband at her side, Mrs. Dole said she realized after a campaign trip last weekend that money is the bottom line, and she doesn't have enough of it.
When I arrived home, I told Bob that this time the odds are overwhelming. It would be futile to continue, and he reluctantly agreed.
She pointed to two rivals who are planning to run TV ads she cannot afford. Steve Forbes, rich enough to finance his own campaign, and George Bush, the champion fundraiser of all time. The figures are daunting. Bush has taken in more than $57 million. Mrs. Dole raised less than $5 million. Even after huge expenses, Bush has more than $37 million in the bank. Mrs. Dole has less than $1 million.
Mrs. Dole was careful not to criticize Bush for raising all that money, and there are some who think she would be a good running mate for him because she might attract women voters.
She is a trailblazer. She is an inspiration for a lot of women.
Another candidate, John McCain, who has been frustrated in his fight to reform campaign finance, blames the system for Mrs. Dole's withdrawal.
It's terribly unfortunate that she didn't lose the battle of ideas, she lost the battle of bucks.
Mrs. Dole blames not the system, but her late start in the race for her failure to raise enough money. Others blame her campaign style. While she was hard-working and disciplined, she never ignited enough enthusiasm to bring in big money.
Money does become the message, and when that happens, it makes it pretty tough.
Lack of money also drove three other candidates out of the race. Lamar Alexander, John Kasich, Dan Quayle, and now Elizabeth Dole has found that without big bucks, the only option left is to leave the stage. John Cochran, ABC News, Washington.
Well, our political analyst, Cokie Roberts, joins us tonight from our Washington Bureau. Cokie, what difference do you think it makes that Mrs. Dole has left?
Well, she did energize women, and young women in particular came to her rallies in large numbers and were very enthusiastic. I think some of them will now stay home. Some of the women will go to their more natural home, which is the Democratic Party. And others certainly will go to the other candidates, and the question is whether it makes a big enough difference to make a difference in any of those candidates' races.
Awful lot of emphasis on can't do without the money today, but money doesn't always get produced if you don't have a message.
That's true, and Mrs. Dole was careful not to get out of this race until she had given several substantive speeches. She didn't want it said that she was just there in a skirt, and that was her only message. She did give speeches on several important topics, and she hopes that in the end is remembered. It'll be hard.
Sorry, do you want to make a brief observation about what this means for women in politics?
Women in politics, even though they are doing better, much better, are still having a very hard time raising money. They're not sitting in those boardrooms where the men are.
Thank you, Cokie. Cokie Roberts in our bureau in Washington tonight. Let's go overseas now because there has been a major political upset in Indonesia, which will have an effect here. The Indonesian parliament, which has been in a very contentious process to choose a new president of the world's fourth most populous country, has chosen an ailing Muslim cleric named Abdurrahman Wahid. It's the first democratic election there's ever been in Indonesia, but there was a power struggle, and the aftermath has been ugly. ABC's Mark Litke is in Jakarta.
Frail and partially blind, President Wahid needed help to reach the podium for his acceptance speech tonight, a speech in which he called for justice and respect for the country's newly won democracy. Yet this was the scene only minutes after his election. Furious supporters of the losing candidate, Megawati, clashing with police. A car ripped apart by an explosion, killing 2 and wounding several others. Fires and street battles lasting late into the night. Megawati had been the people's choice, the front runner, but she was outmaneuvered in Parliament by remnants of the old ruling party here. Indonesia may have experienced its first free and democratic presidential vote, but tonight, the outcome has clearly left a lot of people shocked, angry, or confused. The new president is a widely respected Muslim cleric, but Megawati had the support of the poor and the students who led last year's uprising. They expected Megawati to win. And the rest of the world hoped the election would bring stability and economic recovery to this sprawling nation. Tonight, Megawati joined the new president, urging people to stay calm, to respect the outcome of the vote. But few here believe the ailing Wahid will be strong enough to last very long as president. Democracy may have arrived, but not the peace and stability Indonesians so desperately hoped for. Mark Litkey, ABC News, Jakarta.
Elsewhere overseas today, a Frenchman convicted of sending almost 1,600 French Jews from France to the death camps during World War II has suddenly vanished. 89-year-old Maurice Papon was looking at a 10-year prison sentence for his behavior during World War II. He chose to run instead. One assumes the French and international police are looking for him. Hurricane Jose is plowing through the eastern Caribbean today with winds of 100 miles an hour. It made a direct hit on the small island of Antigua. It looks now as if the storm will miss Puerto Rico, although they were preparing there today just in case. And as of now, Jose is not expected to hit the U.S. mainland. In a moment, an unprecedented meeting with some of the men who rule the drug world. We'll take a closer look.
World News Tonight with Peter Jennings and a closer look. Brought to you by Aflac. Without it, no insurance is complete.
Why do I have Aflac insurance on top of my regular health insurance? Because he has his mother's eyes. Because I still have to teach him to whistle. And because Aflac helps cover what other insurance doesn't. If I'm injured, Aflac even provides cash to help pay bills. So why do I have Aflac? Did I mention he has his mother's eyes? Aflac supplemental insurance. Without it, no insurance is complete.
You've dreamed of opening your own place. Now stay healthy and energetic and enjoy it. Give your life a silver lining with Centrum Silver. Its age-essential nutrients may help maintain your immunity and help keep your heart healthy. Give your life a silver lining with Centrum Silver.
Oh, yeah, those first ice boats had a lot of speed, but not a whole lot of control. Yeah, with the blade set narrowly, couldn't steer around the ice fishing holes. Oh, geez, learned the hard way. Wider is better.
With its speed-sensitive steering technology, the White Track Grand Prix gives you precise cornering and control, even at a good clip.
You betcha. Bredere better.
Wider is better. The White Track Grand Prix by Pontiac. Ask your doctor about Viagra.
What if you could treat wrinkles like an expert would? With RoC, the #1 anti-wrinkle cream in France, you can. Developed with dermatologists, RoC's pure and active form of vitamin A works deeper, inside skin surface. In a 12-week study, the appearance of fine lines was reduced by 86%, wrinkles by 42%. Something more superficial beauty treatments could never promise. RoC, we keep our promises.
We're going to take a closer look tonight at a family. Just getting them to sit down with us is pretty significant news. When the United States talks about the multi-million-dollar war on drugs, it is talking mostly about a dangerous culture born in Colombia in the 1980s. The Ochoa brothers were among the richest and most notorious of the cocaine traffickers, and now the family has been talking. An exclusive interview for ABC News and the PBS program Frontline. ABC's Deborah Amos reports tonight from Medellin in Colombia.
When these people were arrested on drug charges in Colombia last week, the cameras focused on one of the biggest names in the cocaine business, Fabio Ochoa. But this is how the Ochoa family wants to be seen now. Jorge and Juan David are the only major members of the Medellin drug cartel who are not dead or in jail.
Why did you get involved in the cocaine business?
At the time, this wasn't looked upon as a bad thing. In the end, that was a mistake. This business started to be filled with violence.
Fabio, Jorge, and Juan David Ochoa spent the late 1980s running from Colombian police and U.S. drug agents. After being indicted by a U.S. court, all of the Medellin's drug lords feared that the government might extradite them to the United States. Some resorted to terrorism, killing thousands of people. The government was eventually forced to suspend extradition. The Ochoas went to jail in Colombia.
We decided to leave the business and give ourselves up to the government. Since then, we did our time in jail, and we thought all this was behind us.
Now they insist They are just ranchers and are angry that the police have arrested their younger brother.
No, it's impossible. Fabio wouldn't be so naive, so stupid to talk to anyone about cocaine.
But according to a high-level source in the investigation, police have 500 hours of undercover tape recordings, including Fabio Ochoa at a drug planning meeting and talking about drug shipments on the phone. As part of a new cooperation between Colombia and the U.S., Fabio Ochoa has been indicted only in the U.S., so the case cannot drag out in a Colombian court.
Do you believe that your brother will be extradited to the United States?
He will be able to prove he has nothing to do with the business.
Fabio's arrest has the Ochoa family worried, but its impact may be largely symbolic. There are still estimated to be 15,000 Colombians involved in trafficking cocaine and heroin through 430 separate drug organizations. Deborah Amos, ABC News, Medellin, Colombia.
It's a fascinating family, the Ochoas. Deborah Amos will have more about it later this evening on Nightline. And when we come back on World News Tonight, a new order in a vast land, and you cannot get much farther north.
28 different children from 28 different families with 28 different futures, whose parents all share the need for help making informed decisions on what matters most: their health, their finances, their future. One name, Aetna, for what matters most.
Suffering from nasal congestion? A new kind of relief is about to be revealed, because now there's a medicated nasal spray without one single preservative. Introducing Natravent, the only preservative-free nasal spray, for long-lasting relief in one single spray. Finally, somebody figured it out. New Natravent. No preservatives, fast relief. Saline mist also available.
Now there's a Chevy Venture with flip and fold seats and a built-in entertainment system.
I knew I should have taken a left turn at Albuquerque.
Fun things are bound to happen when Chevy and Warner Brothers get together. Introducing the new Warner Brothers edition from Chevy Venture, the most versatile minivan ever. One quick call can help you learn more.
Let's go!
If it's real chicken your dog wants, it's Prime you want. Because high-quality chicken is the primary ingredient in Pedigree Prime. Dry dog food has finally reached its prime.
Our latest innovation springs from a very old idea that heat cleans better. And so, Bissell introduces the only upright deep cleaner with an onboard heater. The new Power Steamer Pro Heat Plus from Bissell. Life's messy. Clean it up.
Now our first denture cleanser keeps dentures feeling clean all day. New Fixodent with ProGuard, a breakthrough tablet and bath system. First, place your dentures into the bath and release the power of ProGuard to get them 4 times cleaner. Then you lift the inner basket to help seal in the clean with the ProGuard barrier, protecting against plaque and odor-causing bacteria from morning till night. Fixodent with ProGuard. Start cleaner, stay cleaner.
What should you do if you're having a heart attack? First, call an ambulance, then take Bayer aspirin. Now Bayer may help stop you from dying when taken during a heart attack. Talk to your doctor now. Bayer, powerful pain relief, and so much more.
Tonight, cell phones. You've heard the reports. With each call, microwave radiation can go into your brain. The industry insists it's safe. Tonight, see the whole investigation. New questions of safety on a 2020 every cell phone user must see. Tonight.
Coming up next on Channel 2 News, Portland's most dangerous intersections. We'll show you where they are so you can steer clear. Plus, will Oregon City's controversial fight club be allowed to continue? The big meeting is tonight. I'm Steve Dunn. Local News is next.
Finally, this evening, we are going to go to the very far reaches of northern Canada. Today, way up there by the Arctic Circle, the legislature of the Indigenous people met in their new Capitol building for the first time. It's very symbolic for this land and for these people. After a troubled history, they are governing themselves. ABC's Dean Reynolds has been there.
At the top of the world, across the treeless tundra, change is in the icy wind. The inhabitants of this seemingly uninhabitable land are taking control of their destiny for the first time. They are the Eskimos, or Inuit as they prefer to be called, 85% of the population in Nunavut, the newest Canadian territory created last spring. 34-year-old Paul Okalik is Nunavut's first premier or governor, the only Inuit lawyer in the territory. There are no Inuit doctors here, few Inuit policemen, and a jobless rate above 25%.
I hope that our plight will improve and that a lot of the expectations that our people have will be met.
Nunavut is more than 3 times the size of the state of Texas, and yet there are only 25,000 people who live up here, scattered in small communities across the vastness of the Canadian North.
There are great mineral resources under the snow, but very hard to get at. There are no highways. The only way to get from town to town is by plane.
Just crossed over north 66 latitude, so we're now northbound above the Arctic Circle.
50 years ago, the Inuit lived independently, mostly as nomadic hunters and fishermen. But Canada wanted to strengthen its sovereignty in the far north. So it grouped the Inuit in modern settlements, insisted they speak English, not their native language, and identified them by number instead of name.
I felt like almost like a criminal. So that's the patronization and criminalization I felt.
The wounds have never healed. Teenage suicide, 6 times the Canadian average. Drug abuse and alcoholism, rampant. For years, the future was cursed.
I think it has a lot to do with people feeling that, you know, they've lost their culture, they have no more identity.
But now with Canada's blessing and financial support, the fledgling government of Nunavut is trying to restore that independent identity and sense of purpose, setting education policy, raising taxes, trying to run the economy, and lifting spirits. It will not be easy, but one thing is clear. In the 4,000 years they've lived up here, the Inuit have faced challenges at least as difficult as this one. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Iqaluit, Nunavut.
That is our report on World News Tonight. Don't forget 2020 and Nightline later on. I'm Peter Jennings. We hope you have a good evening, and that we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Tomorrow from ABC News. On Good Morning America, she's out of the running. Why did she quit the race? Diane Sawyer one-on-one with Elizabeth Dole. The complete interview only on Good Morning America. And on World News Tonight, schools strapped for cash. Old books with wrong, outdated information. Do you know what your child is reading? Watch World News Tonight. This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC's World News Tonight with Peter Jennings than from any other nightly news.
This is KATU, the power of 2000. Now, Channel 2 News.
You might pass one every day and not even know it. A new study reveals some of Portland's most dangerous intersections. Good evening on this Wednesday, everybody. I'm Steve Dunn.
I'm Paul Enman. Thanks for joining us. You may have driven through one on your way home.